Good morning, everybody. It's Chris here at Blue Rhino Safaris. It's coronavirus time and lockdown time, and I'm sure you are sick and tired of hearing about corona. But it's a reality, it's part of our life now, and we have to figure this thing out. If you listen to specialists, then we are going to go through a cycle or two of this, and it's not going to be all over in a week or two. It's going to happen for a little bit. So when you go on a trip with me, I sometimes tell the story about Africa and diseases in Africa. And if you assume that the evolution theories are correct and that man originated in East Africa, then you would know that at some point there was they call it a pinch point, about 100,000 humans on Earth. And after that, they split up, and some moved into Europe, some moved into Australia. And if you assume that human nature says that you'd rather stay with something that you know than go into the unknown, then let's say Africa retained half of the population of the world, and who moved out was the other half. Then you would think that today Africa should have half of the world population and the rest of the world would have half of the population. But it's not the case. Africa has a lot less. The population in Africa is small compared to the rest of the world. And one of the main reasons for this is disease. Tropical diseases. The Zika virus comes from Zambia, Congo, that area. So all of these, Ebola, all those diseases comes from Africa. So we've been living in Africa with diseases for a very long time. And HIV is just one of the newest viruses that we are suffering from the most if you compare it to the rest of the world. So it means that in Africa we are in a different situation than the rest of the world, where we've been dealing with disease and illness for a long time. So we are more comfortable with the understanding of someone picking up malaria and getting healthy, but it's a fight and a battle to survive. So I think we are a little bit more focused than the rest of the world when it comes to the impact that a disease can have on your country, which is a good thing. It means, and I fully support what the government's doing, we have to lock down, we need to protect people. If you've been to the gorillas with me, then you know Joseph. I got a WhatsApp from Joseph the other day that says it's desperate. In Uganda, there's a lockdown, nobody's going anywhere. All the tours have been cancelled, so the tour guides there are struggling. They don't have money, they don't have food. They can buy food, but they don't have the money to buy the food, so it's difficult. So in these times, I would urge you to think of other people as well. And that goes for corona as well. If you think about corona and you think about yourself being healthy, then that's one thing. But remember, there's people that don't have the means, they are at high risk, the elderly people. So if you think you're doing something good for someone in a compromised position, just make sure that you don't make the situation worse by spreading the infection. So if you want to do anything, and I'm thinking of food drives and blanket drives in the winter, things where we would start sharing coming our winter, which is 3-4 weeks away. We need to help people, but we need to do it in an intelligent way. So think of your fellow South Africans, think of your fellow Africans. The guys in Uganda, in Tanzania, in Malawi not so much yet, but Zambia as well. They need to look after what they've got. So that's just the introduction. Just a few points I want to make on what we will be doing and what I've been doing, and just my take. If I was on a trip, I would now tell you the story first thing in the morning before we depart. So firstly, corona is a virus. There is no cure for corona. Please understand it. There is no cure. Malaria does not work. The story originated in France, where they did a very small study, and one or two people got better, and suddenly it took over. Problem is that people are now buying the malaria medicine. It's off the shelves, and people that get malaria will now die because they can't get malaria medicine, because everybody's buying it for corona. So be careful what you listen to and what you're doing. The fact that we have a lockdown means that for 3 weeks. If you're not sick, then you don't have to worry about getting sick, and if you are sick, then you're going to get help and get better in this time. So stay away from the stories. It's a virus, it's not a bacteria, so antibiotics are not going to work. So don't go out and buy up all the antibiotics. In 4 weeks' time, you're going to have a lot of sick people with normal flu, and then the antibiotics needs to be on the shelves. So be careful of just panic buying medicine. So how do you identify this thing? Everybody says it's like the flu, but the way you will do it is through these two things. The TNT method. It's toilet paper and temperature. About 20% of people that pick up corona has diarrhea and a form of diarrhea in the beginning. So if your system doesn't normally get this, and you've been eating at home, no restaurant food, and you start getting a bit of a funny stomach, it's either because you're just crying every night, or maybe it's the stockpile of wine that you bought last week that you're consuming, but it could also be the virus. So this is one of the signs. About 20% of people that have the virus shows initial signs of gut problems, stomach problems. Then temperature. If you have a fever, and a fever is above 37.5, if you have a fever, then 50% of coronavirus infections show fever before hospitalization. So that's only half. It means there's another half of people that doesn't show fever. But at least this helps you to identify it. 89% of hospitalized patients has fever. So, but that's too late. You're already in hospital, so that doesn't make any difference at that point. So those two things are the only real things that will show you whether you should think about seeing a doctor about the disease or not. So if you don't have a runny stomach, and if you don't have a temperature above 37.5 Celsius, then you have probably like a 60% chance of not having the virus. That other 40% just doesn't show those symptoms. It's a respiratory disease, so you'll ultimately start coughing, and what people describe it as that had the virus says it's like someone sitting on your chest and asking you to breathe. It's difficult, and that is a very clear sign of a respiratory disease. So a good practice would be just to keep your distances. In the lockdown period, there's no issue with that. But if you go into town, please make sure to wash your hands. If you go to buy food or anything like that, this is still the key to it all. Hand wash, hand sanitizer. If you don't have sanitizer, then wash your hands with soap and water. 20 seconds. That's still the best way to prevent this disease. Please refrain from the urge to say hi to your family members on your way to the grocery store. Stay at home. The only way we can stop this disease or slow it down is to reduce infections in our area, and we can only do it if we adhere to the rules. Other thing, if you go to Dispelling or one of the pharmacies and they have the nasal sprays, just maybe get one of those and keep your passages in good condition. So keep rinsing, keep using those type of things to make sure that you don't have a sick alternative infection in your sinus cavity. So try to stay healthy. So use your hay fever tablets and those type of things to reduce the risk of this virus taking hold of you. If you have a healthy diet and if you've been taking care of yourself, then your immune system should be good, and that's the only way you can fight this. So there's 3 vitamins/minerals that would be important for your immune system. The one would be vitamin C that everybody's talking about. I'm not a doctor, so this is not a medical advice, but vitamin C is good for your health, for your immune system. So try to eat things with vitamin C in it. Green peppers, take extra vitamin C in tablet form, but make sure that you don't overdo it, because then you can have some kidney stones. The other thing is vitamin D. So if you're at home, open the windows, go out into the sun a little bit outside of your house, and make sure that you get the vitamin D that you need. And lastly, zinc. Zinc also in your green vegetables, and also then as a supplement. So try to do that. Before I go on a trip, I have a certain regime that I use to make sure that I don't get sick. If I'm sick and I can't do a trip, then obviously my business is affected. So I have the system where when I go on a trip, 7 days before my departure date, I start seriously doing hand washing and avoiding social interaction with people, avoiding places where I can get sick, avoiding restaurants that has a history of maybe the odd bugging or a garage pie. We stop doing that about 7 days before a trip. That means if I picked up a disease or a problem, then I can see a doctor and I can get my medication and leave for the trip. So this is something that I've been doing for 10 years now. I keep myself healthy before I leave for a trip. So I'll do another video on those things for when we go out on trips. We will have a few internal trips which is planned and will stay on the map for now, unless things change. But I'm going to expect my guests to follow certain rules leading up to the trip, making sure that they are healthy. So the first thing that you can do is start checking your temperature. Do it once a day, do it twice a day. In China, it is compulsory to check your temperature at least twice a day. It gets recorded on an app. There's an app that I downloaded called Feevy, F-E-E-V-Y. It does cost $1 or $2, but you can record your temperature on the app, and it will keep a history of your temperature. So the moment you see a rise in temperature, you know there's an infection somewhere that you need to sort out. So I'm going to have to make a few measures for people joining me on trips. For the rest of this year, we are probably going to do that, just to make sure that whoever comes on a trip is healthy when we start. And then paperwork and border crossings and those things, if it's allowed and we do those tours, I will doing almost exclusively all of the internal office work, and guests will stay in their vehicles to just stay pretty much clear of possible infections. So yeah, I'm going to do a few videos in the next 21 days to anything from 4x4ing to route planning to destination information, all kinds of things, just to keep us all entertained while we go through this. So yeah, observe the lockdown. This is for all of our benefit. It is not just something that's a disruption. This is for us to stay healthy. And if you follow the rules, then at least you'll either be healthy or you'll be sick, but you won't get infected or pass the infection on in this period. So it will give us a good starting point to know where we are in 3 weeks' time. So another video coming up tomorrow. I've got a list of things that I wanted to chat to you about, including solar systems and a book that I read about David Livingstone and a few interesting things about him, and a few destination issues and a story or two, just to keep you entertained. But for now, stay healthy. If you have a thermometer at home, start checking your temperature. Get into a bit of a system to check yourself. And yeah, what I wanted to say lastly is 21 days is habit forming. If you wanted to form a habit, you have 21 days, and that is how a habit is formed. So if you want to stop smoking, or if you want to stop drinking, or if you want to do anything, it normally takes 21 days. So a good start would be to leave sugar. Sugar is bad for you. So for 21 days, if you say for the lockdown period, no sugar in my coffee, I'm not going to do sugar, then it's just 21 days. And you'll see after 21 days that you don't need sugar in your coffee. So if you wanted to change a habit, use the 21 days. Change your habit, do something fresh in your life. You've got the chance now. And if you didn't stock up on wine, hey, this is 21 days to start drinking a little bit less. In any case, stay healthy, and I'll chat to you tomorrow. Cheers.